I'm focused. I've been watching for the omens. I've been listening to everything you said. It's been running through my head, locked and loaded. I got the feeling that you know it. Yeah, I've only just begun. I won't stop until it's done, till you're broken. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the light. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. I've been waiting for this moment, the final battle of the chosen. See, I'm never gonna quit, got my legacy set in motion. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the light. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. Welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. 'Cause the bigger they are, the harder they fall. You build your fortress and I'll climb your walls. You got your armor, but I see your flaws. So welcome to the fire. I'm the one with the light. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. So welcome to the fire. Welcome to the fire. Feel it burning through your veins as we're walking through the flames, getting higher. Bigger they are, harder they fall.
How you doing? I'm Master Sergeant Bedford. I currently work at Air Force Recruiting Service at Randolph Air Force Base in the great state of Texas. I was born and raised in a small town in Scranton, Pennsylvania. I'm married with 4 children. People ask me, Coach Dan, Sergeant Bedford, why did you join the Air National Guard? I joined the Air National Guard and was able to let me stay in my community, take care of my family, serve my state, serve my country, serve my way. The Air National Guard has given me skill sets where now I'm an established business in New Braunfels, Texas. I'm a veteran-owned business called DB Fitness LLC, where I train athletes full-time in the fitness industry. Where the Air National Guard has helped out in local communities is during the COVID pandemic. And as we transitioned out of the COVID pandemic, our medical personnel, law enforcement, and skill sets that our guardsmen has learned in the Air National Guard has translated into their communities so they could serve their way. If you're not sure where you're at in life or not sure what to do, and if you're up for a challenge, I highly encourage you to check out the Air National Guard and the United States Air Force. Push your limits, try something new, stay local, serve your...
Look, everybody wanna go and talk. At the same
time, gotta walk it. Better yet, run, go, hit a lick, divvy up with my homies, and we do it all again. Whenever we get it, there's no hesitation.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Master Sergeant Tatiana Collins, and when I think about the campaign Serve Your Way, it couldn't be more on brand. When I think about my career in the ANG and all of the things that I've been afforded and the opportunities I've been presented, it's 100% been because I could serve my way. When I think about serving my way, I think about serving my local community, having the opportunity to be who I am, while also serving my local area and relief efforts, and just being a part of a bigger team. When you think about serving your way, I want you to think about what does that mean to you? Because for me, it's a litany of things. It's my civilian career, it's my family, it's my friends, it's my life. But it's only a small part of it. It's not all of who I am, but it's a large portion of who I identify as. I look forward to talking to you guys soon to tell you all about it. Thanks.
I am an American Airman. I am a warrior. I have answered my nation's call. I am an American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am an American Airman, wingman, leader, warrior. I will never leave an airman behind. I will never falter, and I will not fail.
I know it's funny, but that thing gets me every time. All right, welcome back to another Back and Forth Air Force Recruiting Services only live stream. I'm Tech Sergeant Greg Cerny.
And I'm Master Sergeant Jody Reed.
Today we've got an awesome group of guests on our show, and we're going to talk all about Air National Guard, or ANG, and we're going to talk about how you can balance your civilian life and your military life if you've ever considered serving, but you are hesitant to do so because it requires you to move or leave your job or something like that. So if you're looking for more opportunity or more flexibility, but also serve in the military, this is going to be the show for you. Also, if you're currently in the military and you're active duty and you're looking for additional flexibility, maybe you found yourself in a situation where family has kind of got you in one place and you want to stay local, this is going to be the show for you. So we have an awesome lineup of guests, like I said. Special note, we have got Major General Crumbly. He is the commander of the Georgia Air National Guard, and he's going to share some of his insights and the benefits of serving in the ANG. So stick around. During the show, we'll also explore how the ANG gives you the opportunity for top-notch training, some of the best training in the country, in the world, and this is including like flying training, other specialized skills, all while serving your way and also in your local communities as well. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn about the ultimate solution balancing military career and civilian life. That's the Air National Guard. And don't forget, once we get to the question and answer section of the show, we will be interacting with you guys live. Make sure to hold your questions until we get to the question and answer show. If you're throwing your questions in early, we might not see them because we get a lot of comments in there as well, so we don't have to dig all the way back through those. So put a Q in your comment once we do get to the question and answer section, and we'll get to your questions as quickly as we can. All right. So our guests. There we go. So we've got on the bottom left, Major General Crumbly is the commander of Georgia Air National Guard, and his duties and responsibilities include commanding, developing policies, programs affecting more than 2,900 Georgia Air National Guard airmen, civilians. He serves in 2 flying wings, 7 geographically separated units, and training centers across 6 locations. In addition, he also serves as the Air National Guard assistant to the commander of Air Force Recruiting Command. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. I just wanted to make a note also that you are the highest ranking officer we've ever had on this show. So once again, there you are, setting records and making history.
Hey.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
thanks for having me.
Absolutely, sir. Also joining us are Master Sergeant Collins. Master Sergeant Collins, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Master Sergeant Tatiana Collins. I'm joining you by way of the DMV area. I work at headquarters here at NGB with the A1Y team. I'm a 17-year member of the Air National Guard. I joined my junior year of college, still continue with my college career because I was able to serve my way. And I'm really excited to be here today. I've been a marketing professional for over 15 years. And I'm just really passionate about what I do and happy to share a little bit of that with you today.
Thank you so much. Sergeant Bedford, over there on the right. Why don't you introduce yourself for us, sir? Again,
Absolutely.
I
Well,
should say. Cool. That's a cool video.
yes. Well, anyway, first of all, thanks for having me on the show today. I'm extremely excited to be here and share our story of the Air National Guard and serving our community and serving our country. I currently work at Air Force Recruiting Service. I'm a part of our Total Force recruiting national team, I like to call it, National Team of Champions, because I like to win. And I currently am the event NCO. So I manage programs here at Randolph Air Force Base. I'm in Texas. So I manage programs all over the country from UFC, which I'm a huge fight fan. I love the fight game, to minor league baseball and many other great opportunities we have to try to increase our recruiting efforts and share our great opportunities across the country. I'm currently married. I call it my busload of Bedfords. I got 4 children. Busload of Bedfords.
That's
And
good.
I'm also I'm eager to talk about some great opportunities, and I look forward to some questions.
Awesome. Thank you so
Awesome.
much for joining us, all of you guys. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to hang out with us.
Before we get started, it's back.
What's that?
What is back? It's the college loan repayment program. So the college loan repayment
okay.
program back in 2014, I believe it was, it got suspended, and it said suspended until further notice, and that was for years, right? But now in 2023, I think March 13th is when it came back. The college loan repayment program will reimburse up to $65,000 to anyone who has college debt, but there are some, some specifications that you need to meet, some eligibility requirements that you need to meet. So if you want to know if you meet those requirements to get that college loan repayment program, I really recommend you all reach out to your recruiters. If you haven't started speaking to a recruiter yet, definitely speak to your recruiters. That is for active duty enlistment members. So if you're thinking about joining the active duty enlistment side, then you want to reach out to an active duty recruiter and look at that college loan repayment program.
$65,000.
$65,000.
So I feel like that's probably going to turn into its own show. That could be a huge part of a reason that somebody wants to enlist, is to help get rid of some of that college debt and then also gain skills
Right.
towards,
Especially
towards that
somebody
career.
who has $65,000 worth of college debt right now,
Right,
and it's
right.
about to smack them in the face.
Yeah.
It might want to talk to a recruiter.
For sure. All right, I'm going to go first. I'm going to be a little selfish and hog this mic, but I actually have a question for you, General. The Air National Guard has the saying, serve your way. What does that mean to you? And I really want to hear that from someone from your position, what that means truly to you as a person, as also as a human, and also as a general.
So thank you for the human and the general part. I like that. But serving your way, right? I almost personify that slogan. I was an active duty Army officer. I flew helicopters for 8 years. And when we were talking earlier in the show about, hey, what kind of leads people to join the Guard? For me, it was family. I had just returned from the invasion in Iraq, fought in the initial invasion of Iraq in 2003. I returned back, so now I have wife, 3 kids. I have orders to go back to Iraq for 15 months. And I was like, hey, I still want to serve, but I don't want to PCS, all the time for the next 12 or 13 years of my career. So when I came back home, I went to a couple of Guard units, and they were like, hey, man, you can come here. You can still fly airplanes. You can
Mm-hmm.
still deploy and contribute to the fight, but you don't have to PCS anymore. So if you want to go off and go to War College or go to ACSC, you can do those things, but your family can stay here, and they can go to the same high school, same middle school, and you can be connected to your community. You also have the opportunity to help work with if there's a flood, hurricane, tornado, any other kind of natural disaster. So that really appealed to me. And I was a person that knew very little about the National Guard, very little. And once I was informed of that, I was like, whoa, well, okay. I think this is for me. And I also think for other people, whether it's family or career, if you're a guardsman and you're good at computers at your job, you're a cyber expert at your job, 9 to 5 during the week, we have jobs for you on the weekend
Hmm.
and in the National Guard that you can do that can help you at your civilian job. And of course, your civilian skills will always translate to what we do in the military. So I just think it's a great slogan. When I heard it the first time, I was like, hey, that was kind of what brought me over to the Guard to leave the active duty Army was serving my way.
Hmm. That's really cool because I'm also in the same boat. I know very little about ANG. I think I'm just sort of like, I'm on the track, and so my mind is all active duty, right? So it's like full time all the time. This is my life kind of thing. So there's like a trepidation there where I don't think I would necessarily look at it affectionately, but then also I'm like, so I'm in a position now where my wife has a very successful career, and it's difficult for her to just pick that up and go somewhere else and plop it down somewhere. Especially when you're at the position she is. She's a regional property manager, so she oversees
Oh,
hundreds and hundreds of apartment homes, and it's getting to the point now where I'm like, ooh, that's looking pretty attractive because it means I can stay here and I don't have to fight for it because there's no guarantee. I can try to PCA and stay close to this area, but there's no guarantee. And if I was ANG,
Right.
this is home, this is where I serve, so it's definitely an attractive option.
well, let me say this one thing for the spouses. So my wife um, is an electrical engineer.
Hmm.
Undergraduate degree from North Carolina A&T in electrical engineering, graduate degree from electrical engineering in Georgia Tech. So from Georgia Tech. So when I made that decision, my wife was flirting with getting a job with Georgia Power, right? So I'm like, okay, um, I need to ensure that my house stays together. If my
Hmm.
house stays together, I'm going to be a much better airman and a much better soldier. So I'm not
100%.
going to tell you that you won't be stepping off a cliff if you decide to leave the leave active duty for the Air National Guard.
Hmm.
But what I will tell you though is that when you act in good faith, things usually work out for the best.
I like that.
And Dan, after this is over, get his information. I expect to see him in the Air National Guard uniform.
See, that's what I was afraid of. I can't put that kind of precedence out there for anybody. Sergeant Bedford, don't get any crazy ideas. I know you work right down the hall from me. I don't need one more salesman.
You have an all guard panel and one active duty member. We'll get him.
Right.
He said,
we got him.
We'll get him.
Hey, General, I had a question, and you gotta. I'm sorry if I gave any inside information. So before we started, the General was saying, "Hey, if you see me moving my headset like that, it's so I can hear myself and hear the audio from us." He said he used to be a DJ. So being a DJ down to being a pilot, what appealed to you most about becoming a pilot?
So I don't have a memory where I didn't want to be a pilot, right? Like ever since I can remember things, I always remember that I wanted to be a pilot. Period. Dot. My family, friends, people that have known me my entire life were always like, "You were always walking around with a airplane in one hand and a GI Joe action figure in the other." Right? I was like that kid, and the only time I put those two things down was to pick up a baseball or football helmet. So I've always just wanted to fly. I was attracted to it. Uh, the beauty of it, the aggressiveness of it, the sleekness of the airplanes, helicopters, anything that could leave the bounds of Earth, I was attracted to it. And so it was just a natural thing. As far as the DJing goes, a very good friend of mine, Melvin Walker, may he rest in peace, his father bought a whole bunch of DJ equipment, and I did more record crate carrying than I did DJing. But when Melvin and this is high school, when Melvin would see someone that he wanted to talk to in the crowd, he would pass me the headphones and I would DJ.
Oh,
And
that's
I
cool.
just kind of got into a habit after that. Like I always need to have one ear out so I can monitor, what's actually going on. And it just became a thing. Even when I fly on the jet, a lot of times I do the same thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why I'm losing my hearing in my right ear.
But only the right ear. The left one stays
Right,
protected
that's
by
right.
just
It
ambient
is.
noise.
It literally.
Nice. Very cool. All right. So when we introduced you, we also talked about this a little bit before. You were in the Army first, and then crossed over into the Air Force. Tell me a little bit about that adventure and kind of what drove that decision.
Sure. So I grew up in Fort Valley, Georgia. My parents teach at a historically black college university there, Fort Valley State. Dad's a scientist. Mom is an English teacher. 12th grade is coming up, and they're like, "Hey, you got two choices,
Hmm.
right? But both involve leaving our house when you turn 18. So
I know that feeling. I'm counting years.
right. So it's like you can join the military or you can go to college. Those are your options. And so I did both, right? I did ROTC. I was an Army ROTC scholarship cadet at Florida A&M University in Tallahassee. And people ask, well, why didn't you go to the Air Force? And it's quite simple. The Army was paying for everything, right?
Oh,
It was
well, there you go.
room, board, like so. You know, we weren't necessarily poverty stricken growing up, but we weren't rich people either. And I knew that like this was my ticket to get out of Fort Valley, right?
Hmm.
So I Army ROTC, and then next thing you know, I get commissioned into aviation, fly helicopters for 8 years. First tour was in Germany. Participated in Operation Allied Force, the whole Macedonia, Kosovo
Hmm.
thing, and then got back. September 11th happened, and I was sent to the 18th Airborne Corps, and I picked Savannah, Georgia, because I'm from Georgia.
Hmm.
And a year after that, I was fighting in the initial invasion of Iraq in 2003, and
Wow.
Wow.
that was an entire thing, right, to invade someone's country,
Yeah.
and to try to bring what we viewed as democracy to a region that had very little of it, other than the state of Israel, or the country of Israel. Sorry.
Hmm.
So I did that, and before I left Baghdad, we had orders to return to Baghdad.
Hmm.
And that was the first clue light for me, right? I was like, wait, I haven't left. I don't have orders to leave.
Right.
Why do
But
I
you
have
already
orders
got.
to return? Right. So I was like, that's odd.
That's
So
like ordering
when
an
I
Amazon
got back,
package before the one gets there. Like you want two of
that's
them?
right.
Okay, it's like doubling
Right.
up.
So long story short, I had some friends that were transitioning to the Air National Guard, and they were like, "Hey, man, listen, it's a great thing. Um, you can stay in one spot, not PCS, and you can still come back over here and deploy and help win the fight." And I was like, "Where have they been keeping this secret?" You know. And once I got home, I was going after it, and luckily, my hometown unit hired me. So it's I've been blessed, just to put it succinctly.
That's awesome, sir.
Very cool.
I got a couple questions. I know we want to get to Sergeant Collins, Sergeant Bedford as well, but real quick, sir. So when you did switch over from Army to Air National Guard, my first question is: did that affect you in any way? Did you feel like it hindered you in any way, or did you feel like it benefited you in any way? And then, well, let's just answer that one first, so I don't overload
Okay.
with too many questions.
Okay. Yeah. So it helped and it hindered. Right. The leadership lessons that I got from being in the Army, and of course, being in one invasion and another conflict, you get leadership and trial by fire. So that always helps you, right? It helps you. Culturally, I'm gonna tell you, man, I was a Three Stooges culturally, because I was straight up Army. You know what I mean? I was
Hmm.
green and like, hey Sergeant, like, so I had to learn how to throttle back a little bit. I remember being totally freaked out. I was a captain, and there is a guy who's retired brigadier general now, but he was Major Manny Haldopoulos, Emmanuel Haldopoulos, and he was like, "Hey, dudes, just call me Manny," and I was like, "Sir." A captain calling a major by his first name in the army will almost get you court-martialed, right? It's like
Right.
it, it doesn't happen. So I had a couple of people give me, a talking to, like, "Hey, man, we think you're good, but you're not in the army anymore, and just relax. We're really like, hey, we need you to be good at your job, get comfortable with your job." So once I kind of learned the culture, things became so much easier for me. I already had the technical stuff and the leadership that the army had given me, but that just goes to show you, how important soft skills are, right?
Hmm.
You would think that flying the airplane would be the biggest indicator of success or failure, and it's a pretty big one. But your character and how you treat other people, you what's the old saying? Your talent will get you where your character won't keep you, right? So your talent
Yep.
can only take you so far, but how you interact with people will get you the rest of the way. And I
Yeah.
and I had to learn that.
Right.
Shout out to the army though.
you must be treating your people good because your marketing team just came on here for Air Force recruiting, for Georgia Air Force recruiting, and said if you want any information, DM us. So you got a good
Oh,
marketing team out there, sir.
There it is right there on
okay,
the screen.
we'll see what they say. But remember, it goes down in the DM, so we got to see.
That's right.
Gotta be careful. Okay, and my I guess my second question that I had for you, sir, was so when you transition over to Air National Guard, you did the traditional route. So you were working weekends, or it was an active role?
A little of both. When I first got on, I was guard bumming. For those of you who are watching this cast and you don't know what guard bumming means, it's a technical term, which means that you go up to your commander and you ask for days because you're looking for work to kind of go between paycheck to paycheck. So when I left the army, they give you a severance, but it wasn't really a big severance. So I was part time or a traditional guardsman. Then I went off to fixed wing qual. That was about 12 months of constant orders, and you do survival school, and then you have your seasoning days. Seasoning days are days where once you get back to your unit, they want you to get proficient at whatever task it is that you have, right? So if you're a computer person, they give you days to start getting proficient on the cyber side. If you're a pilot, they give you days to get comfortable in whatever aircraft you fly.
Mm.
So I was still part time, and right at the end of the seasoning days, I got deployed.
Mm.
And so I was deployed for about 60 days, and then when I came back, they were like, "Hey, we like you. We don't think you're a total idiot, so we're gonna bring you on full time. But hey, remember this first set of AGR orders? They're kind of probationary, right?
Hmm.
It's your initial AGR tour. So there's some stipulations with that. So I just made sure that I was trying my best to be the best in the airplane. And of course, you always learn stuff from other people every day.
Right.
And then, like I said, the other thing for me was just making sure that I watched more than I talked, especially when I
Mm.
was, trying to figure out this ANG culture. And I was like, okay, I need to just sit back and watch
Hmm.
some people and be quiet for a while and see how this works. And that
Right.
ultimately kind of saved me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you strove to be the best person in the aircraft if I'm going to assume you were flying. That's comforting
Yes,
to
that's
anyone
correct.
who's riding along
Yeah,
with you. So applaud, absolutely applaud that
yeah.
effort. So, all right, actually got a question for Sergeant Collins. Have you been ANG your whole career?
I have. I'm a guard baby, as they call it, which essentially means I started here and I ended here. I was a traditional the first, I guess, 14 years until I came up here on a temp tour at headquarters. I just went everything out here. But prior to that, I've all been traditional, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in summer.
Very cool. Very cool. It's a little scratchy on your audio still. I know we were trying to work on that before the show. I really appreciate all the effort that you put into trying to help us get that figured out. But we're probably going to try to stay away from answering because I can barely understand what you're saying. So I'm actually going to skip over to Sergeant Bedford and pick on him for a second because I hear he used to be a Marine. But you can't make fun of him too much because I love my Marines, don't get me wrong. But the Air Force, I mean, there's a reason you're here now, and with age comes wisdom and all that stuff. Tell me about this. Talk to me.
Yeah, so my nickname right now in the Air Force Air National Guard is a Meerman. People ask me, what the heck is a Meerman? You know what that is? That's half Marine, half Airman.
Hey.
So once a Marine, always a Marine. I'll be a jarhead my whole life. I
Yep.
love the United States Marine Corps. It gave me my background and some skill sets to mold me into what I am today. But the best thing I ever did, to be honest, I'll back up a minute. I remember my dad served in the Army for 33 years. And my dad told me, son, when you join the service, please go and join the Air Force. So I was very naughty after 9/11. And what sold me was the blood stripe. I went down to try to go talk to an Air Force recruiter, and I saw this gunnery sergeant standing there with a bunch of people doing pull-ups and bench pressing in the office, literally in his office, recruiting office. And I was like, man, that seems like a pretty cool place. And I've always enjoyed working out, and I competed a lot in powerlifting through my life. So at that time when I was young, I guess, my dad teases me. He was in the Army. So my dad's like, well, you're young and dumb, but you got smart now and crossed over to the Air Force. And one thing I always wanted to do, and it's just me, what my mentality is, I just love to win, no matter what I do in life. If it's being a good father, a good airman, a good citizen in my community, a good wingman, whatever I could do to help out others around me, that's key to success. And I wanted to conquer the ground, which I did with the Marines, right? And now air power. I'm in the Air National Guard, and here I am. I'm a airman.
Awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So,
all right.
How long were you in the Marines?
I was in the Marines for about a little over 4 years.
Okay.
Active duty, and I was very busy in the Marine Corps. And then I ended up getting married. Some Bedfords started coming around. My busload of Bedfords, and I'm like, what should I do? And you mentioned in the beginning of the show about repayment programs for college. My wife told me, she said, Dan, maybe you should look at getting out of the Marine Corps and look at another component, another branch of service. And I love football. I'm a certified strength and conditioning coach. I'm passionate about the human body, physically and mentally, to overcome obstacles, which fits right into the Air Force and the Air National Guard, what we're doing, what missions and everything we do. But yeah, that's my story. I went to college. I got my master's degree in sports psychology. I got my bachelor's from Penn State. So anyone watching, go Nittany Lions, don't throw nothing at me. And got my bachelor's degree in exercise science, associate degree in sports and recreational management. And when I retire someday, sky's the limit for anyone listening. I plan to finish up my PhD in clinical psychology.
That's cool.
Awesome. And right now you're managing a business as well, right?
Yes, I'm an entrepreneur. I've been running a fitness business called DB Fitness LLC, and I've been running that along with being active duty, reserve guard. I feel like I've done every component out there, but it's good to be versatile, and I always like education, and I like helping out others, try to steer them in the right direction.
That's really interesting. It sounds like you got your education through the military. It sounds like you're managing a business. How are you balancing it all?
I tell you what, time management. I have a wonderful spouse. You have to have the right wife in place. God bless my wife. She's there. She's my rock. She's in my corner. She knows I'm very passionate about serving my community, serving my country, educating myself, and running a business. My business, like I said, I've been running it for years, since 2006. And it's bigger, faster, stronger concept. So I'm not your Gold's Gym or CrossFit type of place. I'm the type of place that you close the garage door, put your headphones in, chalk up, tighten up the weight belt, and get after it. I train a lot of professionals.
Hey.
Heck yeah, that's cool.
That is
All
really
right,
cool.
I've been watching. I see Sergeant Collins. Looks like you switched over to the phone.
I did. My power in my home, it went out entirely.
Oh, your power went off?
Yeah, I
Oh,
was just in the
man.
dark, and then I'm back.
Like,
You're
technology is really cool, but I think that's just that's flexibility right there. She's
Right.
like, transition,
Hey.
boom, there we go. But your audio
There we
sounds
go.
phenomenal. Sounds
Audio's
way
great.
better. So perfect.
Awesome.
So, Sergeant Collins, you also have a business as well?
No, I don't have my own business. I
Okay,
wish.
But you were marketing for the MGM.
Yes. So I was working on the corporate marketing team with MGM,
right?
I started with them in 2015. So when I relocated here, I relocated from Las Vegas. So I actually worked at the Cosmopolitan doing CRM database marketing for them.
Ooh,
And then
fancy.
I transitioned to the corporate marketing team with MGM Resorts Corporate out of Las Vegas. And there I was working kind of with Aria and Vidara as their account manager. And I got to work on some really cool projects like the park complex and opening park, or excuse me, T-Mobile Arena. And then I transitioned off of Vidara and Aria and picked up Monte Carlo for the rebrand. And I did the rebrand to Park MGM, which if you've visited Vegas recently, you're aware, and did some food and beverage entities inside of there. And then when that project kind of grand opened, it was a perfect transition to be activated here, at which point I joined the marketing team in DC.
Awesome. That is really awesome.
Wow.
Very layered. I also am a bar instructor, so I also teach bars. I'm a fitness instructor as well. I just don't own the studio, I just work at it.
Bar. I'm sorry.
Bar.
What
So
what
it's
is
I think
bar?
about like Pilates, yoga, strength training all rolled up into one,
Right.
surrounded by mirrors with someone shouting at you on a mic.
Okay, so just like I asked Sergeant Beckford, it sounds like you got a lot going on. How do you balance it all? How do you manage it all?
That's the best part is I do it one day at a time. The beauty of being in the Guard is that I never had like this big story about joining the Guard. It was I changed my major in college and it added an additional year to my career and I needed a break that
Mm-hmm.
my parents would be fully supportive of. So I joined the Guard. And then I did that through college, 1 week in a month, and then took a full-time position doing marketing in Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky. I started with 123rd Airlift Wing there in Louisville, Kentucky. Um, and then once I finished there, I got a great opportunity to move to Vegas and the flexibility that comes with Air Guard. I reached out to my supervisor, reached out to the Reno A&G at 152nd, told them my situation, did a transfer over to Reno where I was prior to arriving here. So juggling it all has just been with obviously the grace of my leadership giving me the opportunities to kind of move around a little bit,
Let them know.
as well as just the flexibility of being in the Air National Guard.
Very cool. That's awesome. Also, I'm
Mhm.
super ecstatic that we got your mic fixed. I was going to feel really bad if I was like, oh man, I don't know what to do. Just have to keep you. I didn't want to have to keep muting you. So, all right, I've got a
Yeah,
question.
no, it's all good.
So, for General Crumbly, I've got a question for you. It's not very often we get the opportunity to have kind of an informal conversation like this. What would you tell our audience that's listening right now and kind of watching with us? What would you tell them is the best thing about the Air National Guard as it applies to you? So obviously, when we join the military, we have to start at, if you're joining as an officer, you're starting as a lieutenant. If you're joining as enlisted, you're starting as a very young airman. And there's a long way to go before you get anywhere near 2-star status. But sometimes that's the goal, right? That's where we want to end up. So in your day to day, why does the Guard a good fit for you?
So here's why the Guard is the best fit for me. So as you heard me say before, I did time in the Balkans. I've done operations in support of AFRICOM, EUCOM. I fought in the invasion of Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
But if you all remember the Summer of Love 2020, right?
That's not how I remember it.
Right, right, yeah. So when we had a lot of internal conflict in this country, right?
Mm-hmm.
During 2020, we had COVID that hit us really hard, late February, early March, and then we had a lot of civil unrest happening um, throughout the summer.
Yep.
That was I had spent the previous 20 something years of my career going to someone else's country to help other people, right? Which I don't have a problem with. But this was the first time that I was actually in my country helping my citizens, my
Mm.
fellow taxpayers, the folks who had put these clothes on my back, gave me the fuel for the jet that I fly, gave me the jet, the boots on my feet. This was the first time that I was actually able to affect positive change here in America. And I've done a lot of things, but I would tell you the domestic mission is what separates the Guard from the reserves and the active duty. Being able to help your fellow citizen as well as being able to affect the away fight for me means everything. And during COVID, we helped distribute testing kits. We cleaned nursing homes to keep infection rates down. And then, of course, past the summer, we helped with the COVID vaccinations. But during the summer, in particular here in Atlanta, we took a riot to a peaceful protest in about 12 and a half hours.
Mm.
We got out there, and what we told people is that, hey, we are here to protect your right to peacefully protest. That's what
Mhm.
we are here for, right?
Mm.
And we are here to protect your constitutional right. But we are also here to keep people from vandalizing and committing criminal acts.
Right.
If you're not a criminal and you're not a vandal, then you don't have anything to worry about from the National Guard.
Mhm.
And now, I'll say this, you never want the citizens of America to get used to seeing people in this uniform out in the street. If we have 10 missions, that's number 11, right? That
Right.
you just don't, it's bad for business, it's bad for our democracy, it's bad for the republic. However, when it has to happen and we do it, we want to make sure that we do it with professionalism, seriousness, and also with the care and knowing in our mind that we are here to defend the Constitution, even the parts that we may not personally like. And at the end, after it was all said and done in Georgia, no one from the Georgia National Guard, Air Army, was severely hurt or injured during the protest, and we didn't have to hurt anyone because we made sure that we communicated early and often that, hey, we are here to protect people that are here for the Constitution. If you are not here for the Constitution, you should probably find somewhere else to go.
100%.
And within 9 days, we were cleaning up the streets here in Atlanta and moving on, and not
Wow.
just in Atlanta, Savannah, Augusta, other places. So that to me is the difference, right? I get to do a home game and an away game, and
Mm.
that makes all the difference in the world for me.
That's so cool. I love being able to have the opportunity to talk to generals, anybody with a star on their chest, because you get to ask questions and you get answers like that.
Right. That's
That's
a
like,
great answer.
I'm just sitting here like, and we had Amanda in the comments. She was just like, "Oh my gosh, I love that answer," and like just the love for the people around you,
Right.
and the love for your country. It just comes through. And that was really well answered, really well said. Thank you so much, sir.
Yes, sir.
For everybody out there in the comments, I see the questions coming through already. We are about to get to the question and answer section. Probably just a couple more questions, and then we will jump right into that stuff. So get ready to keep those cues fired up, and then we will get to the first ones that we see popping up on the screen. Did you have anything?
I didn't. I felt like I got all my good questions out.
Okay, as I was.
Wait,
Never mind.
I know you all usually don't do this, but I want to ask Master Sergeant Collins about the whole casino deal, and like what was
Fire
that
away.
like with the marketing for billion-dollar corporations? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, how old were you when you started doing that?
Let's see. So I relocated to Las Vegas in 2012, and I was 28 years old at the time. So it was a long time ago, and at least it feels that way. I started with MGM in 2015, so I was like early 30s. But what was amazing about that, and that is one of the beauties of just being in the military in general, is the manager who actually recruited me and kind of scouted me for that position. Her husband was in the Army National Guard and still is.
Mm.
And he was deployed in Afghanistan, and she was living in Kentucky and happened to be working on my marketing team there. And somewhere along the way, she's like, "You should relocate to Vegas." And, I wasn't open to that at the time, but when she came back to me about a year later, I was all about it. So I interviewed, did Zoom stuff. We were doing this exact kind of like Zoom interview situation. And I relocated out there to work on the Cosmopolitan team, at which point I then transitioned to MGM with her several years later. But what's amazing about it is marketing is the same everywhere you go. It's just a different goal and a different angle. And oftentimes, I say when you work in casinos or you work in Las Vegas, right, you're selling people things they don't need. Um, that is kind of what hospitality is as a whole, right? You're selling an entertainment, which is a fundamental human need. So however you receive that entertainment, consume that entertainment, is on you, but everyone needs it to just thrive and be good in life. And so we kind of took it with that approach, like, what is it that you need? And we focused on all of the things that are tangible that come in contact with a guest. So whether that be the napkin that sits in your lap, the straw that you drink out of, the way that the restaurant looks, the menu, the way it feels in your hand, all of those kind of things within reason were our main focus. And there was a whole team of people. So let me be very clear, there were hundreds of us involved in this, but
No, there's just
being
one.
able to,
It was just you doing the whole
yeah,
thing.
yeah, it's
I
just
like
me
to
doing
think of
all
it
of it.
as you as a superhero, just
But being able
killing
to
it.
see your work is like a thing that I just can't explain to people. Like if you can work on it and see it in a tangible feel, like you drive down the highway, you see your billboard, you eat at a restaurant, you taste the food. You know,
Right.
Right.
it's just
Yep.
incredible. It
Yeah.
just
That's really
really is.
cool.
It's incredible.
General, if you didn't have any follow-up questions for her, I did have one more for you.
I'm all ears.
All right. So because you answered that last question that we asked, I thought that I would ask you this question. This is a tough question that a lot of people are trying to figure out the answer to, myself included. Right now, the state of recruiting. There's so many different, I guess, things that are contributing to recruiting efforts right now. And I was just trying to get your idea or your take on it, on what you see, what some of the problems are, and also what some of the fixes are for recruiting right
Sure.
now.
Yeah, so across all of the services, we're having trouble meeting recruiting goal, annual recruiting goal across all the services. Some have already said that they won't make it. Others are like, hey, it's going to be close. You know, it's going to be a Vinatieri field goal at the end of the Super Bowl, right? They'll have to see if they can make it. But I always try to give people historical context to what's going on. If you were to look at America 50 years ago, we were coming out of a very long, protracted war in Vietnam, right? People had a low trust in government, and um, unemployment was kind of waning. You know, it was ebb and flow, but you really had record high inflation.
Hmm.
Now, if you were to take 1972 and make it 2023, they would almost look identical. America is coming out of a long, protracted war, 20-year war, right? There's a low trust in government. We have record low unemployment, but we have record high inflation, right? So people are
Mm.
like,
Hmm.
I got a job, but my money's kind of funny, right? It's right.
Yeah.
So remember, you had Nixon, right? And then we have the current events that we have right now that like it is almost parallel. So we have seen this before, and I say that to people so they know not to panic, right? This is not the time to panic. Okay, we've been through this before. We have to row harder,
Yeah.
right? And what I like about what Master Sergeant Collins said was, and I wrote this down. She said part of my job was to make sure that I influence everything that the customer comes in contact with.
Mm.
Let's translate that to us and how we look, right?
Mm.
When the civilian populace comes into contact with us, and I put that in air quotes, when they see us, what do they see? Right? So there's a certain way we have to carry ourselves. There's a certain way we need to look. There's a certain way we need to speak to people. For our recruiters, we need to understand that you can't just recruit people that look like you. And I understand that. It's real easy for me to go back to Fort Valley, Georgia and probably clean up. I can clean up in Fort Valley, right?
Hmm.
But if I go to another place where I'm not as comfortable with the people, I may not recruit there. And what I make sure that my recruiters know is that you have to be comfortable. And if you can't get comfortable, too bad. You're gonna have to do it one way or another, right? We need every single American that we can find that's willing to serve in this uniform to help us with our global challenges. And
Hmm.
I think that I know that we'll do it. We'll be successful. But let me give you one last stat here. So by 2030, China is going to be about 4 to 4.5 times our population, and they're going to have 15 times more people with degrees, not just degrees, but PhDs in STEM, right? In a STEM field,
Hmm.
science, technology, engineering, and math. Okay, so if we're going to compete, let alone keep our position as a preeminent power in the world, if we're just going to compete, we have to recruit people in places that we usually didn't recruit from, and or places that we aren't comfortable in going.
Right.
So that's one thing that we can do. The other thing that we can do, quite frankly, is that you don't have to just be a general and go out and speak at high schools. And I speak all the time. Uh, encourage your fellow airmen, especially the people that just came through basic training. They're still excited. They're still woohoo about the Air Force and Air National Guard. Pay for them to go TDY to
Mm.
high school. And when I show up,
Mm-hmm.
it's cool, but I'm old and bald headed, right? So the kids don't really, they're not really relating to me. But when I take younger folks, they relate to them, and we can usually pull one or two people into our formation. And last but not least, on this point, make sure that when we are selling this message, that we express to people all the great things that come with this. You get to meet new people, you make lifelong friends, you get your education paid for. Uh, those top three, you're looking at it, right? All those three things happen to me. You'll get to uncomfortable boundaries, and you'll break through them, and you don't have to stay in forever to be a success. Not many people get to serve their country, and I just think it's a noble thing. So I just wanted to add some context to that. That's all, to let people know we don't need to panic. We do have to row harder, but we've almost been in this identical position before. So no need to panic. We just have to, move forward and row harder.
Another great answer.
Yeah, you're available in 2 weeks. Come back on the show, right, sir? Thank you so much. All right, now's the part of the show where we get into the question and answers with our audience. So let's get one fired up here on the screen.
All right. Can you join Air National Guard if you separated out of active duty honorably but have an Article 15 on your record? It would depend on your RE code. So when you look at your DD-214, you're going to have a reenlistment code. One of the sayings, now this doesn't apply true to everything, but one of the sayings is RE codes of 1s and 3s to a recruiter are good with me. 2s and 4s, please see the door. So if you have a 2 or a 4 as an RE code, it doesn't necessarily mean you're disqualified, but it may take a little bit more work to get you in. And 1s and 3s also doesn't mean that you're fully qualified. A 1 would, but a 3 usually has some circumstances where the recruiter may have to do a little bit of extra work, but not too much. You should be able to get back in. So I would say look at the DD-214, look at your RE code and see what that is, and then reach out to a recruiter and see if they can work with it.
Nice. I'm glad you're here. I didn't know that. All right. What advice do you have for someone who wants to become a pilot in the Air Guard? I will graduate in 2026 with my RATP. I think that's how you say that. RATP. Is that RATP?
Yeah. RATP, and that's an acronym I'm not familiar with.
The RATP then.
Is there? Do we have a guest on board who can answer that? Or? Oh.
Yeah, here we go. I'm here. Yeah. So I think it was the ATP part. I think it's his aircraft transport pilot. I think that's what he was saying. I'm not sure about the R part, but either way, here's the deal. When I joined the Air National Guard, I applied to no fewer than 15 units, and I would highly encourage you to do the same thing. If you can, and if it was an ATP, that means he's going to have his private pilot's license, probably have his instrument license, which always helps. But it is no guarantee that A, you'll get hired, or B, that you'll be successful in UPT. But I would highly encourage you to court as many Air National Guard and Reserve units as you can. Continue to fly, keep your hands wet as much as you can afford to, and then be yourself when you get to the interview. I've seen people with pristine resumes, and then they get into the interview, and we're like, so here's the difference between the Air National Guard and active duty. You don't like each other active duty, in 3 years you can PCS and you don't have to see each other anymore, right? Or if you were the problem, you can reinvent yourself at your new unit. When you hire someone into the Guard, this is gonna be your friend for the next 20 to 25 years. So we really, really, really treat the interview as like, okay, we're not going on a date. We're about to get married.
Right.
That's what's
Okay.
happening, right? So
It's long term.
long term, right? This is your spouse that you're about to pick, and you have a 15-minute interview to figure out if you're going to be with this person for the next 20 years, go to war with them, right? And that's and
Hmm.
that's honesty, right? It's real life.
Yeah. No,
Right.
So
that's true.
when I tell you do all the flying and all that stuff, I mean it. But I'm also telling you, do some interview prep. Don't come in cocky. Be humble and approachable, but also be confident. And those things will help you ultimately get your dream. We can always train pilots, but we can't train character.
Mm.
I like that.
Hey, you come with them, General. Those some good answers.
That's good. Oh, and I saw somebody popped up in the comments that you just say RATP. So thank you for that.
All right.
Appreciate that. This one's you.
Where are we at? Oh,
It's
what
on the
is the
screen
age
somewhere.
cutoff to join the Air National Guard? So that would be similar to active duty and the Air Force Reserve. It's going to be up to, you got to get to basic training before your 40th birthday, unless you're doing a piloting program. And the age cutoff for them, what did they say, 33 or 35? What was the age cutoff for pilots?
I don't know.
I keep forgetting it every time.
33.
33.
33.
33.
It's magic 8 ball over there.
If you're trying to go that route, but every other career field is going to be up to your 40th birthday.
Cool. All right, next question. Difference between ANG and reserve. Without bias. I'd have to play like the ref right now because I realize I'm surrounded by you guys. But
Right.
like, difference between ANG and reserve, unbiased.
I would like to hear the general's opinion.
Oh,
again.
okay.
He's got the good one.
Well, now if he's biased, I just have to be like, yes, sir.
Well, I was gonna here's what I'll do. I'll give my version, but I would also like to hear what Dan and Master Sergeant Collins have to say. So, point blank, when you work for the Guard, when you are in any Guard unit, right, in any 54 of the 54 states and territories, you kind of have two commanders in chief. You always have the President of the United States, and you have the governor of the state in which you serve. So that is the first constitutional difference if we're just going to kind of parse this thing out, right? So that's the constitutional difference. When you're in the reserves, you have one commander in chief, and that's the President of the United States. So that's the technical side of it. Then when you get into the cultural side and the reserves, uh, you can stay in one spot forever, but they'll tend to PCS. They have a few more PCS opportunities than we do in the National Guard. And the National Guard, if you're trying to do an interstate transfer, can it happen? Yes. Do they happen that often? No. Right. So we're much more of a homogeneous kind of organization where the reserves are kind of connected. We joke in the Guard that we have 54 Air Forces, right? Because every tag runs their state a little bit different, which is great, but it also makes it difficult sometimes to try to get a consistent message out, right? So that's why we have this TFI recruiting, where it's like, hey, we're a branded house. We all need to recruit to the same goal. My last 30 seconds on this one, and I'm tying this back to recruiting. So think of the Air Force and you all probably heard this, but this is for the viewers, as a house. It's a branded house, just like Apple, IBM, whatever. In that house, you have active duty, you have Guard, and you have reserves.
Total force.
What I've instructed, that's right, total force. What I've instructed my recruiters to do is like, hey, if you have a young recruit that's like, I want to see the world and I want to go to um, Korea, and then I want to go to Germany, and they're coming to the Air National Guard, hey, just look over at your active duty brother or sister and say, hey, this person is probably, the active duty may fit what you're looking for right now. What I tell my active duty recruiters that we have, I'm like, hey, if you have someone that's like, I want to stay at home, I'm getting married in a couple of months, and my parents, I have a close relationship with my family, but I still want to serve, then send that person over to the Guard. And then if you have someone, especially because the reserves really have a higher propensity, a higher population, I'm sorry, of prior service people. When those in-service recruiters are talking to folks, the reserves as well as the Guard, but definitely the reserves need a lot of prior service applicants. So that there's a way that we can all help each other, because in the end, once we deploy and we get after our nation's wars, I have never asked anyone deployed if they were Guard or active duty. That's just not
True.
something that comes across my mind, right? When I'm there. So um, we're all getting after the same thing, but we're just three different brands in the same house.
Right.
But I would love to hear Master Sergeant Bedford or Collins answer that.
Hi, Master Sergeant Collins here. I'm happy to take a stab at that. So I think it comes down to exactly what the general was saying. It's state versus federal, right? So when you think about the Guard, you think about the state mission, and oftentimes that's what drives what's happening at a local area. So if your governor has a specific goal in mind or mission and or need, you're going to activate to that. From a reserve perspective, you're going to answer to the president, right? The governor rolls up to the president. We have two, they have one. I think when you think about the Guard, you think about your local hometown community. So when we say it is much more personal, and we were using that example, the general was using the example earlier about utilizing first names. While it's not necessarily something that is commonplace on like a regular basis in a professional setting, it very much is a family setting in the sense that oftentimes when you go to a Guard unit, it's going to be, someone's grandfather served in that unit, and then their son served in that unit, and then their kid is thinking about joining that unit. You often can find full lineages of family members in those
Right.
local spaces that you don't always come across in the reserves. My father was active duty Air Force, but then he was in the reserves, got out for 10 years, got back in the Guard.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up joining the same unit and served alongside him in Kentucky.
Right.
And so
That's
I was
cool.
always Collins's, daughter, and I'm like, I'm my own person. But like
Right.
that was a very much about how it was. Like I came in as, I grew up with those folks, and then here I was serving alongside them. So I think it's just a little bit of a different culture, and it really is dependent on what it is that you're hoping to get out of your military career.
Awesome.
Yeah. Good answer.
Sergeant Bedford?
Yes, absolutely. Well, being that I've served in just about every component, I feel like I was active duty. I was a reservist. So when Major General Crumbly was talking earlier about reserve looking for your prior service applicant, I was it. So I went in from, got out of the Marine Corps, went into the Air Force Reserve because at the time, yeah, I had a family and all, but I wasn't really connected into the community I lived in. And to move around a little bit and find different jobs within the Air Force Reserve kind of fit my needs during that time of my life. But what's nice with total force recruiting is you always want to look at what's going on in a person's life, and Collins and Major General Crumbly has already hit on this, that you want to look at the applicant themselves. Like, what's their situation? Are they single, not married, no kids, or a young family and they're willing to deploy and go all around the world? Then active duty all the way, or maybe slash reserve. Reserves all about moving around and conquering missions too. But what's really good with the Air National Guard that I'm currently serving in now is, I'm older in my career, right? I've deployed a lot, 6-7 times over my career. Married with my busload of Bedfords. I'm an entrepreneur business. I coached high school football in the past. I love my community. I like having family nearby. So I got in a point in my life where I'm like, you know what? I'm not sure if I really want to move right now because I could keep my kids in their local high schools. I don't have to move. I'm looking for stability. And we touched on this earlier, but it's state versus federal is how you look at it from an active duty reserve standpoint and from a Guard standpoint. So here I am, an entrepreneur, serving my country, serving my way, and giving back to my community. And go total force.
Awesome.
Go total
You
force.
put the plug in there.
There it is. There it is. All right, let's get the next question. Very cool setup. Is this a home studio or on base?
Ooh.
Trick answer, it's both.
It's both.
So this is our temporary setup. We are currently building and setting up our official studio, somewhere where we'll have a little more room, where we won't be this close. and where we'll actually be able to see Major Lane when he's helping us out and doing the producing, and he switches between the scenes and makes it look professional. But we are, in fact, not in that studio now. We are on someone's front porch. Doesn't look like it because the background is set up for a different podcast style live stream thing, but we've repurposed it for our needs here. And it works for what we need it for, and it gives us a good baseline to start with, and it gives us great practice.
Right. And
I am about to buy him the world's quietest air conditioner, though, because it gets toasty out here when that sucker's not running.
and fun fact, so we're actually on base and on base housing. So every military base, I say most military, I would say every, offer on-base housing. So you have the option when you join, if you have dependents or not, you can choose to live in on-base housing, or you can choose to take what we call a basic allowance for housing. And the Air Force or whatever military branch you join will give you a housing allowance, so you can go either rent or purchase a home. So the major has chosen to use the on-base housing. He lives in the officer housing. So we're
nice.
We're using his home right now as the studio. Like Sergeant Cerny said, eventually we'll transition over to, I guess, a professional studio.
A bespoke studio that's specifically for this live stream. We have to change things around. We have to change the mics. We have to change the cameras, because he normally sits like over here in the middle and has just the cameras on him. And now we're like, okay, let's get it set up for 2 people. So
Right.
Great question. Also, surprise. All right, next question.
Hello, Jody. Are you with Air National Guard? Yes, I transitioned to the Air National Guard back in April of 2022. Similar to what Sergeant Collins and Sergeant Bedford said, I guess for me, my transition was more for staying in San Antonio, Texas. I knew if I had stayed in active duty, I was going to have to PCS, permanent change of duty station. I was going to have to move to another location, and the active duty wasn't going to be able to guarantee to keep me in San Antonio. So one of the instructors, who was a guard instructor over at the recruiting schoolhouse, was leaving. And so I applied for her position, and it kept me not only in San Antonio, but it kept me on my same job that I was doing as an active duty member as well. So that was really rare to do that, but I happened to do it, and now I'm serving in San Antonio, serving with the Guard.
Oh, not serving my way. I can put that at the
Serving
end.
my way. I definitely chose to serve my way by switching over to the Guard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right, next one. Hey, there's another one for you.
Oh, yo, Jody, your videos have helped me so much in the process of getting a tattoo removed so I can join. Hopefully it all goes good. Whoa.
Hopefully it's only one that has to be removed.
Right. I'm
You can
hoping
have
you're not
some.
removing a tattoo that doesn't need to be removed. So our tattoo policy, recently we just updated it to where you can have hand tattoos. Now there are some limitations. I don't want to just say that lightly. I believe the rules have stated that you can have a tattoo on your hands no bigger than an inch wide. If it is bigger than an inch wide, you can do an exception to policy for the rule as long as the tattoo doesn't exceed 25% of your hand. So if you're removing a hand tattoo, you might want to talk to your recruiter about the recent tattoo policy. Also, we are allowing an inch by basically a tattoo on your neck, no bigger than an inch by inch, and it can't be in front of your neck. It has to be on the back side of your neck. So if your tattoo is something like that, you might want to talk to your recruiter. But if it's like a facial tattoo or a front neck tattoo, definitely you would have to get that removed in order to join. But I am glad that my videos have helped you, inspired you to join. That's awesome.
And I'll do the plug for him. So a lot of you guys out there recognize Master Sergeant Jody Reed. He has a YouTube channel called Jody with a Y. He's actually got quite a few followers and stuff on there, and makes some fantastic videos giving people a heads up as to what to expect going into basic training, joining the military, joining the Air Force, and stuff like that. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, Jody with a Y.
Check me out. That's so cool.
Yeah, there it is.
I did it.
I did it. Did you hit that? All right, cool. Let's get to the next one. ADLO applicant. Somebody's going to tell me what that one.
Line officer applicant.
Active duty line officer applicant. Got it. Application sent back due to not having the 100 recent hours with 12 months for the CPW, and was told to go to regular rated route. I can't read the rest of it. There it is. Will I have to do the same with ANG? So is the ANG any different in that process?
I'm not familiar with the
Yeah.
CPW.
Anybody in the guest slots, if you guys are familiar, feel free to take a shot at this one.
No, I'm not. But what I can do though is, if you all can give that question to me, I can send it down to my A1 and have them look at it, and then we can respond back to them.
Mike? Okay, we're going to
Oh, can you
fire
hear
up the mic behind the cameras and let Major Lane, he's saying something back there.
No, I was just saying CPW's career path links. I'm not sure if it's different in the guard though.
Okay.
Okay.
Copy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Just say that question for me. I'll give it to my A1, and then I'll email it back to you guys, and you can respond to whoever that
Okay,
is.
sounds good. So yeah, answer inbound. That's one of the first times we've ever had one that we weren't able to answer.
Right.
So good question. All
Awesome.
right, let's get the next one, and we'll be back. Let's see, SD. We'll lock that one in and get something back to you. Is there a way to join the Air Force while being overweight? I used to be 352. Now I'm 219, and I have a lot of loose skin, so I am overweight.
Oh my gosh.
First off, that's incredible.
Yes.
Congratulations. That's a lot of weight to lose.
That
so
is.
that's amazing.
It's at 133 pounds.
That's a lot of
crazy.
I feel good when I lose like 5.
Right. So it'll really depend on your height as well. So I think it said 219. You're down to 219. So you would have to look at a height and weight chart. But here's something crazy that the Air Force also recently just did as well. They have increased the body fat measurement. So now you can join up to 26% of body fat. So before it used to be 20%, and that wasn't that much. But now with 26%, your weight can be a little bit over the maximum allowable weight that you see on the height and weight chart. And the way they measure with the neck, they measure with the waist for males. And for females, their body fat measurement is going to be 36%, and they measure the neck, they measure the waist, and they measure the hips. So I would recommend you talk to a recruiter, see if you meet the height and weight, or see if you meet the body fat measurements. And maybe you might be good. Maybe you might have to lose a couple more pounds. But it sounds like it's definitely possible. And once again, congratulations for losing all that weight. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah. All right, let's get to the next one. Explain active duty and guard.
Explain it.
So how about we just like synopsis? Like just keep it
so
like an overview.
I think that you're gonna have job. The Air Force has a certain amount of jobs, or they have a limited amount of jobs. Air National Guard bases also have a limited amount of jobs. One is going to be if you do a traditional type of guard duty, you're going to be working 2 days a month. Basically, you're going to have a weekend where you come in and you're going to be doing your job at your unit. The active duty side, you're going to be working 5 days a week, maybe less, maybe more, just depending on what type of shift you're on. And you're going to be doing your job pretty much full time, and you're going to be receiving a full time pay. Where with the guard, since you're only working 2 days a month, you're going to be receiving pay for those 2 days a month. So in a nutshell, that is going to be the biggest difference, but there's a lot more to it that you would probably want to do some research about. I would say reach out to a recruiter, maybe do like a recruiter swirl, basically where you see an active duty one, you see a guard one, and you see a reserve one. Ask them your questions and figure out which one of the components works best for you.
You don't happen to have a video already on that, do you?
I do. I do have. I have some videos where I interviewed some guard recruiters, reserve recruiters, and they break it down as well. I just didn't want to plug the channel.
Hey, do me a favor.
Yes, sir.
Get that person's information. Find out where the closest TFI recruiting office is to them, so they can just go to one place, right? And they'll have guard, active, and reserve recruiters in one building, and then we can give them the spiel, and then hopefully get them to sign on the dotted line in the same day. So
Yes.
if they're not already in, but if you all can hit them back and like, hey, where are you? Here's the closest TFI recruiting office, and then send them that way.
So we have a lead refinement from actual Air Force recruiting service. They're in the comments.
Okay.
Lead refinement, if you're listening, could you track that person down and try to get their information, maybe get them started in the process.
And get them pointed toward a TFI recruiting center.
Right.
For sure. All right. There we go. You can take this one.
Question. I have 12 years total service. I got out and got all my FFA pilot ratings and my bachelor's and my bachelor's degree in aerospace science. I'm about to be 32 this month. Is it still possible to join as a pilot in the Air National Guard or even the U.S. Air Force Reserve without aging out? Yes.
Yeah.
So you would have to reach out to a recruiter. Go ahead and try to get that process started. Definitely possible.
Good news.
Yep.
College loan only for E or O. So I think there's a little bit of difference here. If you're talking about the loan forgiveness, the loan repayment plan, for the enlisted active duty, it's $65,000. If you fit and you make all of the if you match the what's the word?
Eligibility
Eligibility.
requirements?
I was like, it starts with an E. I can't think of it at the moment. The eligibility for it, and I think there is an option for officers, but it's a different framework. I think it's a little more circumstantial, but yes, that still will work for
I think
officers.
the JAG has one.
Yep.
Judge Advocate.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know the acronym, but the JAG is for your law or your lawyers. I think that they have a college loan repayment program.
That one also goes up to 65.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I don't know outside of the JAG if there's any other officer programs that offer the college loan repayment program. Once again, you want to reach out to your recruiters and ask them that information.
Hey, and let me just say this: if it's a person that's interested in the Guard, each state has their own individual repayment plan too. Right? In Georgia, we have the service cancelable loan. The word loan is horrible. We've been asking them to change the name, but basically, if you go to a state school in Georgia, you shouldn't be paying any money. Period.
Right.
I know that South Carolina has something like that. Florida has something like that. Illinois, one of our senior ranking civilians here in Georgia is a lawyer, and in Illinois, when he was in the Guard there, they paid for his law degree. So every state is a little different.
Yeah.
So that's another plug for talking to your recruiter because there are a lot more options out there than what you think.
Yeah, there are some states as well that allow the members to start using their education benefits before they even go to basic training. Just upon swearing into the Air National Guard, some states allow the applicant or the members to start going to school right away. So reach out to your recruiters, learn about those education benefits for the Air National Guard as well.
Cool. And Isaac Nix, I see you in the comments. Thanks for hooking us up with the acronym Judge Advocate General.
There we go.
I was thinking it, I didn't want to say it in case I was wrong, but thank you. Appreciate that. Question for Master Sergeant Bedford. I am an active duty Marine. I can say this. My grandpa is a Marine, and I used to work in a work center where I was the only airman in an entire section of Marines. So they told me I could say raw. Anyway, transitioning. I was hoping you could explain the process from active to guard, especially cross branch, and how rank/MOS crossed over for you.
Yes, 100%. So raw back to Jacob there. Jacob, thank you for your question. When I first left the Marine Corps, and you could probably relate to me with this, once a Marine, always a Marine, but they would tell me, hey, I don't think the Air Force will take a Marine. There's going to probably be some extra psychological tests that we'll have to go through. To go in the Air Force, or Reserve Guard or whatever, And so I ended up contacting a recruiter in my local area. So I highly recommend that you reach out to a recruiter because you have to see what's available as far as your AFSC, which is equivalent to your MOS. So whatever MOS career field you're in right now, you have to get with the recruiter, find out if there's opportunities, not only with that same AFOS, your MOS career field, I meant to say, sorry on that, but there could be several other career fields within the Air National Guard that you may be interested in, where a lot of your training, education, if you took any college credits, could transfer over into some different career fields that you might be open to. My advice too is going from the United States Marine Corps into any component in the Air Force is, come in with an open mind, get your foot in the door. Don't be sold just in one career field, open up the door. I had a friend of mine that was in the medical profession. He was an occupational therapist and he just wanted to do something different. So he ended up going into the Air Force. He was kind of like me. I don't know if it's a Marine thing, but he joined the reserve and now he's in the Air National Guard. But and he's doing something different, you know. So my advice to you is sky's the limit. Come in with an open mind and you could conquer any goal. But first, you definitely want to sit down with an Air National Guard recruiter in your area. And if you leave your name, number, or DM me, I'll get your information, get you to the right person, and Marine to Marine, I'll take care of you. Well, I'm a Merriman now, so be ready to be called a Merriman.
Kills me every time.
Man.
I've never heard that before, but it works really well.
Awesome.
All right, next one.
Says, how do I get in contact with the Air Force National Guard recruiter? So you can go on airforce.com, and basically you would go to find a recruiter, and they can find a recruiter for you. On airnational.com, basically there's a section that says find a recruiter, and also on the Aim High app. If you download the Aim High app, there's another way for you to find a recruiter in there as well. You just let them know which component, or actually it'll give you contact information for all three components. You'll get reserve, guard, and active duty recruiter contact information. So go ahead and check it out. You can find a recruiter.
Let's cue this one up. Sorry, Collins.
This one is, can you have a full-time job in the ANG? I feel like we have a subject matter expert on that one. Sergeant Collins, why don't you take this one for us?
Yeah, I heard my name back there. Yes. The answer is yes. Arguably, my full-time job was my main career until 4 years ago. So I focused on that heavily. I put all of my time and effort into it. I was trying to build that career to the highest point. And there's a lot of flexibility and support in that as well, because in the Guard, there's a lot of us that were civilians during the week and traditionals on the weekend. But you're always going to be a Guard member full-time. So just keep that in mind, that while there's flexibility, there may be opportunities or times where you are required to be activated in a full-time capacity. However, being able to juggle a full-time job and do this on the weekends is 100% possible, and you can do it really well as long as you manage your time.
Awesome.
Very cool.
That's really good information. Also, Air National Guard has active positions as well for full-time positions. Now, they're just not handing them out. You got to apply for them. You got to meet the hiring board. But the Air National Guard has full-time positions as well if you wanted to go that route.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, check this one out.
And something to keep in mind to piggyback on that is, if you did want to get into an AGR position, which is the active duty position, you will want to join the Guard as a traditional first to be afforded the opportunity to apply for those positions. So if you're looking for them and you're curious as to why you're not seeing them, that is why. So get with your local recruiter, get into the state in which you want to serve, and then at that point you can transition and apply to a position that you see fit.
Gotcha.
Thank you,
Solid.
Sergeant Collins. All right. Just a thank you to Jody for helping guide my granddaughter to the 1-in-1 X1 alpha position. She says she's going to trust you. I just talked to you. I believe you emailed me probably yesterday. I replied to you. So this situation, basically, there's a grandmother. Her daughter went to MEPS, qualified, everything was good to go. And she listed a bunch of medical jobs, a bunch of 4N jobs. So 4N is the AFSC for medical, or not 4N, 4N. I don't know. Basically, that's where all your medical jobs are. And she listed about 10 medical jobs. If you've ever watched my videos, I always talk about how the medical jobs are very rare. The active duty Guard, pretty much all the components, they're constantly getting people who want to join for medical. It's very appealing. And so the jobs are very limited. And so we really don't have them that available. So when someone goes to MEPS and they list all medical jobs, the likelihood of getting one of those jobs is not likely. So then comes the upset, or somebody gets angry, right? They get to their recruiter, they say, I want to do medical. You're trying to make me do something else. In defense of the recruiters, they just don't have the positions to give you the medical job. So the grandmother reached out to me and had a situation where the granddaughter was upset about not being able to get one of those medical jobs. So she also stated that the recruiter told her, based off of her personality test, basically the TAPAS is a tailored adaptive personality assessment, it showed that she was really good for the intelligence career field. So I had told her, I said, hey, you might want to look into those intelligence career fields. Not only if the TAPist told her she fits well for the intelligence career field, not only might be a good job for her, but they're also really good jobs in the civilian sector. So if she's trying to set herself up after the Air Force, along with the top secret clearance, those intelligence jobs are really good career fields to look into. So if that's you, that's awesome that you watched this live stream, because I just talked to you like I think this morning. So man, that is real time, real effective information. And I'm glad that I can help you all out with that. That's awesome.
That's pretty cool to see how that goes like
Right.
that quick too, especially if you guys were talking just that recently.
I'm pretty sure I emailed her this morning. That's very fast,
For
real
sure,
time.
For sure. All right, it is getting pretty close to 15:30 for us, which means we're getting closer to the end of our show. We're still going to get to a bunch of questions, but this is the part where we're going to try to rapid fire our answers for some of these questions. So we're going to try to get to the meat and potatoes of the question, answer it with as quickly as we can. And actually, I've got a question. Major General, do you have a time hack? How much longer do we have you for, sir?
Oh, I cleared off my calendar, man. Listen, this keeps me doing email. So yeah, well, I'm good.
Appreciate
More
that.
questions.
More questions. All right, so let's see how fast we can fire these ones off. Will a nonviolent felony withhold me from a position?
Non-violent felony, not necessarily. So the Air Force has different categories for your moral offenses. That's what they call them, moral offenses. Any law violations, they consider them moral offenses. They have different categories, 1 through 5. Sometimes the felonies are a little higher in the moral category. So if you have like a moral category 1 offense, then most likely you're not going to join. But if you have a 2, or maybe your moral offense falls into a category 3, you can get those wavered, just depending on the background of the actual offense. So you want to talk to that recruiter and let them know what your nonviolent offense is, and then they'll kind of figure it out if they can work your waiver. Now, one thing to consider, if you're gonna need a waiver to join, the recruiter is doing a lot of extra work to get you into the Air Force. So when the recruiters do that extra work, they're expecting you all to meet the Air Force needs. So when I say meet the Air Force needs, that kind of means like you're going to only be able to list the jobs that they currently need at this moment. So if you wanted to do something outside of that, the recruiter is going to be like, hey, I'm not going to do this extra work if you're not willing to do the extra work on your end. So it's like scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. So keep that in mind if you need a waiver done.
Yeah. No problem, Matt. Our pleasure. Hello, can I join at 40 years old?
If you're already 40, no, unless you've done prior service. And then if you have some prior service years, basically they will subtract the years you did as a prior service member. They'll subtract them from your actual age. And if that age is under 40 years old, then you could. So it'll be a special circumstance in order for you to join at 40.
All right, we'll do one more here, and then we'll see if we can find some that our guests can help us answer as well. I went to see a recruiter. Now I'm studying for the ASVAB and also working on my PT. I hope I can make it in the Air Force. I work as an electrician.
Hey.
Not a question, but good luck.
Good luck.
Keep talking to your recruiter, and best of luck to you. There
Yeah.
are plenty of jobs in the Air Force that deal with electrician-based skill sets.
Yep. Get those scores up.
Yeah, for sure.
What information should we have ready for our initial conversations with our guard recruiter? Medical, legal, job selections, etc. I would say just have your questions already written out. So any questions that you have about the guard. Now, when you're going to see a recruiter's job is to figure out why you want to join, and also they're trying to figure out if you're somebody that they want to put into whatever component they're recruiting for. So you want to be able to know why you're joining. That way the recruiter can figure out this is going to be good for you. Also, you want to figure out what it is that you're trying to achieve in life as well. So whatever goals you have, whether it's education, whether it's financial, whatever, traveling, whatever it is that you're trying to do, you want to be able to express that to your recruiter as well. That way they can make sure that they have something for you upon you joining. And that would be my best advice. Just know why you're joining and be able to express that to your recruiter. the recruiter would do the rest. As far as the medical, the legalities, all that stuff, the recruiter's going to get all that stuff done for you. But before they can do that, they just want to make sure that the whatever component you're joining is going to be right for you. Okay.
We have an input on that one from our panel, our guests. Oh, I'm just getting thumbs up. All right, let's get another one. Does ANG have a similar time and service prior to BMT like ARNG? RSP.
Like ARNG.
Active Reserve?
I think that's Army Guard.
Oh,
okay.
See, we're like, that's Greek.
All right, so what was the question again? Does it have a similar time and service prior to BMT like Army National Guard? So I'm wondering if they're asking, like, how long is the wait before you go to BMT?
I don't know. Major General, you speak more of this than we do, so you care to weigh in on that one?
So really, I'm trying to put the question up one more time. I'm just want to make sure I understand the question. Does ANG have similar time in service prior to BMT, like the Army National Guard?
It sounds...
Okay, so go ahead, because I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Is he saying like, hey, if you were prior service, how long do I have to wait to go off to training, or if that person's still on, have them clarify that question.
Yeah, I would say clarify that question. I don't want to answer it wrong.
Recruit Sustainment Program. This is the same person.
Recruit Sustainment Program.
Is it like student flight? Are they asking like what is like? Is there a student flight program prior to BMT? That's what we call it.
Right.
Is that what it's called in Army?
That's what
National Guard?
I'm thinking that they're asking how long the student flight I guess path is before you go to BMT. I'm thinking that's what they're asking.
That's what I'm reading it
So
as.
we just got rid of student flight, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no more student flight.
Oh.
So right. So what's going to happen once you get to your unit? You're going to get absorbed by the Guard, and to be quite honest with you, it depends on which tech school you're going to. Every tech school has some schools you can go to training right away. Other schools you have to wait 6 months, 9 months to get to them. It just depends on what your AFSC is. And I wish I could give you a very cookie cutter answer, but it's the worst answer in the world, right? It depends.
Yeah.
But it does. It depends on what your AFSC is and how long that training pipeline is.
Definitely.
If that's the question they were asking.
I think if we boiled it down, she followed up and told us, yes, that's what she was asking. How long is it going to be while she's waiting?
Yeah. Thank you, Rodrigo. Appreciate the support. All right. What's y'all's take on the Space Force?
Alien fighters.
It's tremendous. I mean, it's our little brother.
Yeah.
You know, like, what? It's kind of. It's like big.
Yeah. Listen. I'm all about the Space Force. I love it. It's high tech. Like you said, it's our little brother. One day we're probably going to be working for them. The way technology is progressing.
Yep.
But if someone wants to join the Space Force, you should do it. Just understand that it's a very technical service, and some of the skill sets that they're looking for, not everyone possesses. So make sure your ASVAB scores are high.
Right. As Space Force is going to be the toughest branch to qualify for, not just for ASVAB scores, but also for your background. All of their jobs are going to require top secret clearance, so you got to be squeaky clean. You got to be smart to join the Space Force.
Yeah. Air Force also recruits for Space Force as well, and we will actually in the future host a show specifically for Space Force where we'll have Space Force guests. Obviously, Sergeant Reed and I will manage this part of the hosting of the show, but our guests will actually come on that will be Space Force specialists that can talk to any kind of questions that you've got for that. So make sure to subscribe, track this, and every other Tuesday, 1400 or 2 o'clock Central, show up here and bring those questions for Space Force stuff. So as much as we laughed, definitely not making fun of Space Force. Space Force is incredibly cool. I'm a little surprised that he popped the question up. It's like, what's your opinion on it? It's like asking somebody what they think of another branch, or if you're asking reserves versus guard, it's like, oh, okay. Well, I'm in the Air Force. don't get me wrong. When they started bringing out some of that transition stuff, I was like, that'd be pretty cool, because some of the things that those guys do is like right up my alley, and some of the tech stuff that I'm interested in. So
Right.
very advanced stuff. It's really cool.
I will give a personal take. Every time I'm working with Space Force, I don't really. I see them as Air Force as at this point. Like I still see them as Air Force, just in a Space Force uniform.
Right.
So it's not like any hatred or any jealousy or anything. I just kind of see them as Air Force at this point. But I know over time, because the transition is so recent, I know over time, we won't see them as that anymore. At least me specifically, I know over time I start seeing them as Space Force. But at this point, some of my friends are Space Force, and I've known them in the Air Force for the last 17 years. So it's like, it's just hard to differentiate right now.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, the uniforms look very similar. The only difference is the colors on them are a little different, and then some of the ranks are a little different. But aside from that, it's very similar looking, and they still speak Air Force language.
Right.
Like, it's still the same baseline. So
Right.
yeah.
Says, what's the handle for Jody in case we need to reach him? Basically, you can find me. I'm on YouTube. I can't manage too many other platforms. YouTube is very busy. So you can reach me at YouTube. It's going to be Jody, Jody, with a WHY. So Jody with a Y. You can reach me there.
It's a clever name.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to go out there and answer questions, because if you tell people Jody with a Y or Jody with an I, that's how you would typically tell them how to spell your name. But with the Y, I like that. It's clever.
Yeah.
It's clever.
I just came up with it. I was in the shower, and I came up with it.
That's where the best ideas happen.
My wife was like, it sounds pretty good. So I was like, if she said it sounds good, I know it's going to work.
There you go. All right, let's quick fire some more. Greetings, what about chaplains? Do you accept chaplains from the chaplain candidate program?
That's going to be, I would say we probably have to follow up with you because I don't know that answer.
So, my mic. Hey, this is Major Lane from the background. So if y'all just hear my voice and not see my face. But the chaplains was actually supposed to be on today, but because it's Holy Week and they got a couple things going on, we're going to actually push them 2 weeks from now. So just subscribe, make sure you come back. We don't want to give inaccurate information, but we will have the chaplains on in 2 weeks, and we're going to talk all about, the opportunities they have and that they offer. But I will say this. They're recruiting just like the rest of us. So I'm not sure what your specific question is, but there are tons of opportunities in each component for chaplains.
Yep. And I'll say something for you just because experience talking to chaplains while in the Air Force. Tune in 2 weeks. Even if you're not interested in potentially joining the chaplain corps or becoming a chaplain, the answers and questions and the experiences that some of these people bring to the table will blow your mind.
Right.
Like the input that they have as a holistic view, and it's not even so much spiritual. Obviously, there's an element of spiritual to it. The spirituality is a big part of it because it will be based on the religious aspect of it. But chaplains bring so much more experience and counsel and guidance that if you pass that up thinking you don't need it in your life, you're wrong, period. So show up in a couple of weeks, if nothing else, just to be blown away by how awesome some of these guys are.
Not only that, but also their programs that they have. The chaplains have some really good programs for people to take advantage of that I really want to highlight when we get them next time. So make sure you tune in just so you can hear about some of the couples retreats and singles retreats.
I'm playing a golf tournament next month for free because of the chaplains.
Right.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And I didn't get an invite?
Offline. All right. Let's get to the next one.
Awesome. So how often does the Air National Guard deploy, and would it affect me as I go to college? Sergeant Bedford, I haven't heard you in a while. Let's get your take on that.
Okay, let me read this question here. If you sign up for 6 years in the Guard,
I think we jumped questions.
Yeah,
It's the two-part.
It's a two-part.
Two-part.
So the first part was how often does Air National Guard deploy? Would it affect me as I go to college? And then it was if you sign up for 6 years in the Guard, do you get a 2-year protection from being deployed to focus on school?
all right. Well, as far as deploying and affecting your college, here's the way I look at this. It won't affect you at all because you're always going to get your college. You're always going to get your college credits as you're going. You could also perform and fill out paperwork at your local university or college that you are deploying, so you won't be penalized for kind of getting out of sequence, because I know there's a lot of college programs. When I was going for my graduate in sports psychology, I actually deployed at the time, and I was worried about getting kicked out of my program. And my advice is get with your college counselor at your university or college, right? Let them know that, hey, there's a possibility that I'm going to be joining the Air National Guard. I may have to deploy. In a lot of these universities, we have a thing called the Community College of the Air Force. So a lot of these colleges and universities, they have a great relationship with the United States Air Force. So they'll be able to work with you on that. I was able to graduate, get my degree, and still see the world. That's something you could put on your resume too. I mean, not too many people get a chance to travel the world and see some great things. But just remember, when we're talking about the Air National Guard, we are about serving our community. So the chances of you deploying, I'm pretty sure if you were to talk to higher command and let them know your situation, there's always different situations for every aspect of life. But remember, you're serving your community, you're educating yourself, and if you're going to deploy, go do it. The best thing I ever did in my life is deploy. I deployed 6 or 7 times. I learned a lot from it. It made me successful in my civilian career as an entrepreneur running my business, and it made me successful in my career in the Air National Guard. So there's always flexibility. Sometimes you got to peel back that onion, I like to call it, and make things work. But definitely get with a recruiter for sure and talk to an Air National Guard recruiter in your area for any other concerns. And what was the second part of that question? I want to make sure I hit everything.
They basically asked, is there a 2-year protection when they first serve to finish school?
If they join for 6.
If they join for 6, do they get a 2-year protection of non-deployment for the first 2 years?
Now, as far as that question goes, I'm going to lean on Sergeant Collins for that, because I'm unaware. But again, I'm old. I've been in the game a while. Things change like everything else in life. Sergeant Collins, have you heard of that at all?
No, I haven't heard of that. But what I would say is exactly what you said, that if you have a conflict and it's a large one, I would just get with your leadership. I wouldn't focus so much on what you think might happen and instead just focus on what is happening. I mean, yes, of course, things are, unpredictable, but I have not heard that there's a 2-year hold or anything like that. But I know that, having that conversation with your leadership and explaining to them your situation, if it's a feasible pivot, then I'm sure that they'd be happy to assist you.
Right.
Another thing too, I'd like to add in with that too is get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
The best thing you could do in life, everyone wants to do things that are comfortable, right? When we're comfortable, things are easy, right? But when we're uncomfortable, that's what's going to make you a better human being overall. Because you're going to be able to get knocked down, stand back up, and conquer anything. So I wish you the best of luck with your journey, and definitely get with an Air National Guard recruiter in your area.
Thank you. North Carolina, is that North Carolina? Air Guard?
I'm going to go with yes.
I'm wanting to go officer non-rated, and recruiter told me I have to go enlisted, then apply for OTS, and wait for a job to open up. Is that true, and is there any way to go in as an officer? So saying that you had to go enlisted first, that's probably not true, but he's probably saying it because the likelihood of getting accepted as an officer straight off the streets as a civilian at that guard unit is probably unlikely. So he's probably giving you a tip saying, hey, if you really want to increase your chances of getting picked up as an officer, to go enlisted first. I'm hoping that's what it was. I would say just reach back out to that recruiter and then see if that's what they were trying to give you that advice. But that's my take on that.
Yep. All right, we are getting down to the end of the show, and obviously to respect our guests and their time, and thank you so much for joining us one more time, guys. We're going to wrap the show in about 10 minutes, so we're going to see how many questions we can get through in 10 minutes. So, if we were going rapid fire before, just flip it into full auto. Let's do it. I'm interested in security forces in the National Guard. I would like to know, how would it work out? I know how the job works, but not in the National Guard. Do I have to work enter?
Do I have to work enter?
I'm not sure I tracked that one.
That last little bit, I was with you. Work enter.
Can we pop down back up, or is it gone?
So, yeah, I think hold on, wait.
All right.
Yeah, I got rid of it, but somebody did have a question on what security forces does. So let's just kind of give from a Air Force perspective on what security forces is for those who may not know, and then if any of our guests from Guard kind of have any other input you all want to add, feel free to chime in on security forces specifically in the Guard.
Right. Nobody's part of security forces, are they?
I am, so I can answer if we need to.
Take it away, sir.
So, security forces, for those who don't know, is the Air Force version of military police. And in the civilian world, we will be a cop. Now, they're actually getting ready to change their model to air-based ground defense. And so their marketing is kind of changing, so they don't want everybody to think when you join, you're going to first be a cop. So essentially, they have two sides, the security side and the law enforcement side. And when I joined, they were merged together. So when you graduated from tech school, you would come out as either a patrolman or a security infantryman, not infantryman, but a security essentially member. Anyhow, long story short, they are the security and they are the law enforcement for the Air Force. And so when you first join, you can expect to guard aircraft. You can expect to check IDs and make sure people who are coming on base are authorized to come on base, just doing typical security stuff. Then if you're a good airman, you can actually move up. And again, in their new model, you can move up to either do K9, where you handle the dog. You can do Cadem, where you train people to fire weapons. And then you can now go into the law enforcement side. Again, that is kind of freshly brand out, but then you will actually do law enforcement. They deploy, and they typically do the same thing deployed that they do stateside, is protect and serve. And I would imagine it's very similar in the Guard Reserve as well. Matter of fact, I was active duty security forces, but because we were deploying, we brought in some Guard and Reserve to kind of help backfill for us. So we're definitely interchangeable.
Yep. Base police, basically.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Major.
All right, next question.
Is it the okay? What's the passing ASVAB score for the Space Force?
Ooh,
shoot, I don't know what the minimum is. I know that for pretty much all components, 31 is the passing, but I know Space Force, you won't be able to get any job with a 31. So I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that just because I don't know what their lowest ASVAB score for their jobs are. So I wouldn't be able to tell you what the minimum is.
Stay tuned for the Space Force show, for sure.
Definitely.
Yep. All right, next one. How is the transfer process being a guard? I'm going to hand that over to somebody who's guard.
So I transferred from active duty in 2022. It's pretty easy. I first had to get my commander's approval. So I had to go out to my commander, my active duty commander, and say, hey, I'm trying to transition into the Guard. They gave me a conditional release, basically saying that, okay, we release you as long as you get a position in the Guard. I applied for a position. I had to do a board, basically, where they asked me some questions. It's a hiring board. They asked me some questions. They liked what I said. They hired me. I went back to my commander, said, hey, I got hired. Had to get with the recruiter and did the recruiting process. Basically, I had to switch over to the Guard from active duty. Once I got switched over, it's pretty simple, pretty
How long
easy
did
process.
it take for you?
I was a little bit slow motion, so it probably took about 4 to 5 months from doing the hiring board to actually transitioning over.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Next question. Does every state give state TA in the ANG? I'll let one of our guests take this one.
Yeah.
Tuition assistance
go ahead.
varies by the state. Oh, sorry, Joe. So it varies by the state. So, and the amount that's available to you is also varied by the state. I think, as I mentioned earlier, someone had their law school paid for. I know at one point I could have my master's paid for. So it just depends on what state you belong to, and each state holds a different, a different bucket of tuition assistance, and that's varied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anything to add, guy? Did I miss anything? Okay.
All right.
If a person is 100% disabled in accordance with the VA desert, disqualify them from application.
I think they might be using voice to text, and it was does it disqualify them.
Oh, does it disqualify? Okay. Ooh, I'm glad you were here because I did not know what they were asking. So does it disqualify them from reentry? So being 100% disabled, if you're collecting your disabled money, yes, you would not be able to join. You would have to forfeit your payment in order to rejoin. But if you're getting 100% disability, you got a good thing. You got a good thing.
Nice. Main differences between job availability and benefits for the Guard versus active duty. Ooh.
So I was told that if the base has aircrafts, then they have a lot of jobs. If the Air National Guard base doesn't have aircrafts, then their jobs are going to be limited. Whereas active duty has all the jobs, but you can go to all the locations. So that's going to be one of the things to look out for if you're applying for Air National Guard base. Do they have aircrafts? And if they do, they have a lot of jobs. Am I off with that, General?
No, not completely. It just depends with the new way that we're going to fight war, right? For instance, you may have bases with a security forces detachment, right? A lot of humans in security forces.
Mhm.
So therefore, there will be a lot of jobs there. But to your point, when you have aircraft, they're just branches and sequels from that, right? You got pilots, then you have to have the maintainers. Then from the maintainers, you have to have the fuelers, and so you have security forces to protect the aircraft, and you have to have security forces to protect the base itself. So you typically have more people in wings with aircraft than not. What I would tell them is just figure out what it is you want to do. Right? Do you want to see the world, or do you want to kind of stay local? And then, as Master Sergeant Collins said, you can't, or to paraphrase her, you can't worry about what might be. You have to do what is. Right? So figure out what it is you want to do, and if you want to join the guard, then go to that guard base and say, hey, I want to do this, or recruiter, I'm sorry. I want to do this thing. What do you have for me? And if you don't have it here, where can I find
Copy.
Thank you, sir.
Alrighty.
it? Yep.
Question for Major General. What tips would you give for those who are current burned out while on active duty and feel like they're not appreciated for their hard work? Ooh. Well, sir, you're right there.
Well, I'm glad I have a lot more career behind me than in front of me, right?
And
So
one-liners
listen.
are great. This guy.
Right. So listen, let's talk about this burned out feeling. I don't know anyone that leaves their house, civilian or military, that goes to work that hasn't experienced burnout at one point or another.
For
right?
sure.
So the first thing I'm going to talk to you about before we even get into active duty, guard, or reserve is that you have to take care of your mental, spiritual, and physical well-being. Maybe your problem isn't that you're burned out from your job. Maybe you have something spiritually, or some kind of uh, or a physical thing going on, and all those things together make you feel burned out. So let's first assess that, right? I can't promise you that if you come to the National Guard, that your life will be easier, or the pace will be slower than it is on the active duty. The unit that I commanded as a wing commander, we were steady state deployed for 20 years.
Wow.
It was a very busy unit, and people deployed often. But the main thing I want to encourage you to do is deal with the burnout problem first. Unless you deal with that, whether you go to the active duty, guard, or reserves, um, it will make you a less effective airman. So if you want to transfer to the Air National Guard, once you deal with that term burnout, and you find whatever help it is that you need, if you want to come to the Air National Guard or the reserves, remember, you always have to be honest with yourself. What is it I want to do? Right? Do I still want to do my current job, or do I want to do a different job? Then find a state or reserve unit that has that job, and go after it. But once again, let's deal with that burnout issue first. Figure out if it's a physical, mental, or spiritual thing. Uh, Fix that, and then after we fix that, we could probably answer the second part of that question better. And I
Mm.
hope that helped.
Mm.
You know, we'll see.
Solid advice, though.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
I need someone like you in my corner. I can constantly call on, get that great advice. That's great advice.
Listen, Tony, you're new to the Guard. You need to work, and work. All right, that was for whoever the airman was.
Get to your burnout first, then we'll talk.
Get to your burnout, right?
Get there first.
Right. But I am serious about that. I am very serious about the physical, mental, spiritual well-being of all of our airmen. I can look at all of you on here, and I know at one point in your lives, between spouses, kids, job, rec football, baseball, like your spouse, like we have all been like, what am I doing? So you got to tackle that first, and then the rest of it kind of takes care of itself.
It's awesome.
Is there a way to join and ship with spouse?
Definitely.
Spouse in the military?
I'm thinking they're
like to join with your spouse and then ship with your spouse?
I'm thinking they're asking like with their spouse as a civilian. Either way, if their spouse is a civilian or military, guard or active duty is going to try to keep them together. If you're guard, you're going to stay in your location, so you're going to be with your spouse. But if you're active duty, the Air Force is going to really try to keep you and your spouse together. Now, there are locations that you can't go to with your spouse, and they're normally a short-term type of location, like where you may be there for a year, maybe 2 years. So there are those locations where you can't take your spouse, but for the majority of locations, as long as you're married and your spouse is on your orders, the Air Force is going to get them with you.
That's part of your family, and the Air Force will do their best to keep you together as long as you're heading somewhere that's not unaccompanied, which is not a very large majority of the assignments that we get. All right, last question.
If you have a low GPA, can you still join? And also, is the number of college credits or is the time spent in college that lets be E3 or E2 after basic? So is the number of college credits or time spent in college? Oh, I see what they're asking. So they're asking, do you get any extra rank for going to college? So yes, if you have 20 semester hours up to 44 semester hours of college, you come in as an E2. If you have 45 semester hours or more, you come in as an E3. That's on the enlisted side. If you have a bachelor's degree or more, you can come in as an officer. And that is the only time your GPA matters, is if you come in the officer route. So if you had a low GPA, anything really less than, they say that they accept, or the eligibility requirements are 2.5 or higher, but realistically, they're not hiring anyone with like a 3.5. That's the average, 3.5 GPA or higher. And so if you don't meet that requirement, most likely the officer path may not be realistic at this point. And the enlisted path may be more of an option. But the enlisted path does not look at your GPA. They only look at the ASVAB, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery. They're looking at that to see how you score and then determine what jobs are fit for you.
There you go. Well, guys, I think that wraps it up. It's another episode in the books.
Hey.
I want to say a very special and heartfelt thank you to our guests. Major General Crumbly, I know for a fact that you have an insane schedule, and I want to thank you truly for joining us. To have a 2-star on the show is something that, I mean, if you're in the audience and you're familiar with the military ranks, that's only a couple from the top of the top. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule and joining us. Your words of wisdom were very appreciated. And I want to let you know that we definitely thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Master Sergeant Collins, Master Sergeant Bedford, you guys have been awesome. Thank you so much. Sergeant Collins, I am so glad we got that audio thing fixed. That just made my heart feel good. So we will see you guys in 2 weeks. We'll be right back here talking chaplains. So bring those questions or just come hang out and check out these awesome people. So 2 weeks, next Tuesday at 1400. Please join us. Subscribe to the channel. Check us out on YouTube, on Facebook, and on LinkedIn, and all the places.
Everywhere.
But with that, I'll turn it over to our guests. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to give shout-outs, say thanks to anybody?
First of all, thank you for the opportunity. I've been looking for new and dynamic ways to get fired. When I heard about this broadcast, I was like, all right, man, let me give this a shot. But hey, really quick, once again, We've been in this situation before. We're going to persevere through. And then some states already see a trend, an upward trend of people joining the military. I always want people to remain positive, remain optimistic, and remember, if you can't remember anything else, we are called Americans, not Americans, right?
Facts.
So that means we will conquer. We won't only survive, we'll conquer. We'll get ahead of this thing. We're going to have 100% in our formations again, and we will retain our place as a preeminent power in the world. So once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on the show and spread the gospel of the United States Air Force, the Air National Guard, and the Air Force Reserves.
Major General Crumbly, I might be a little premature, but we were talking to the Lieutenant Colonel before you came in, and she said that you were starting up a podcast for Georgia. Is that up and running, or is that in the works?
So they have a podcast, and let me just be painfully honest, right? Like sometimes when you're in the Guard, everyone is old. You know what I mean? Like everyone is right. So we are boldly rushing into 1995. You know what I mean? So we're trying to get a little more modern. All right, we're trying to hip it up a little bit. So
Right.
we already have it. But I showed it to my twin daughters who are at Spelman, and they're 21, and my son who's 18 at A&T. I was like, "Hey, look at this!" And my son literally like just threw my phone down. I was like, "Okay, all right, okay." Yeah. So we're working on it, right? We're working on it. I'll let you know when we get it right.
You got Master Sergeant Collins. That's marketing right there. She might be able
I
to
know.
help
Hey,
with
listen,
that.
I wrote her stuff down. I was like, okay.
There you go.
Let me get a phone call.
She might be able to help.
All right. Thank you all so much. We're going to sign off of here. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks, 2 Tuesdays from now, 1400, 2 o'clock for the civilian types out there, Central Time with the chaplains. That's it for us. We're out.
Hey.
We hope that you enjoyed this episode of The Back and Forth, brought to you by Headquarters Air Force Recruiting Service. It is a privilege for us to bring you all the information and insider insight into the exciting world of the United States Air Force. Remember, this show is all about you. We want to make sure we're providing you information and answers you need to make an informed decision about your future. So make sure to join us every other Tuesday with your questions, your feedback, and any ideas you have for future episodes. We are all ears. Don't forget to subscribe to our social media channels for even more exciting content. And also visit airforce.com for all the latest information on serving as a Total Force Airman. And with that, until next time, aim high.